Hi guys, it's Rose, and welcome back to A Spoonful of Geekiness. Now today, my intention was to do my top 10 books. I ran into a little predicament. I couldn't pick just 10. Shocker, right? So today is going to be my top 13 books. I couldn't rule any of them out. I love them all, like, so much. I couldn't. And so yeah, we're having a top 13 instead of a top 10. I have them kind of separated into categories. And the first category that we have is classics, which if you come across a reader who does not have a single classic on like their top 10, 15, 20 books, they need to fix that. Like, just shove them into, like, just shove their face into that aisle in Books A Million where they have, like, all the pretty bound classics. Also, I apologize if you hear a bell in the background. My cat is currently going insane. I don't know why Zoomies are supposed to be saved for 2 or 3 a.m. So I apologize for the bells. Anyways, everyone should have at least one classic in their top something list. And I have 2 in my top 13. This first one you've heard me talk about extensively in my top 10 book series list, and that is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, also known as Charles Dogston. So, technically, I guess this is 2 books. Although I've never seen a copy of just Alice in Wonderland. I have only ever seen like books with both Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. So I'm counting it as one book. If you don't know the plot, little girl Alice chases a white rabbit in a little vest, and he's carrying an enormous watch, and she follows him, tumbles down the rabbit hole and into the magical world of Wonderland. I love the original because, like a lot of classics, like you've heard me talk about, like for the Grimm's Fairy Tales and all that kind of stuff, I like the original version, the original kind of darker version. Like, when Alice falls in Wonderland, you can tell something's wrong here. Like, you can tell it's not actually a Wonderland. It's probably more of a Nightmare Land. But yeah, I love this book. It's definitely my number 1 classic book of all time. It has great rereadability for just reading things, and then, you know, it's kind of like every time you read it, you notice something different. In either the symbolism or what's happening. You know, you'll just see it through different eyes when you give it repeated readings. And so that's one of the reasons that I like it. Okay, enough about Alice. My second classic that was one of the first, like, big girl adult books that I read when I was younger is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I'm sorry if I screwed up that pronunciation. I do every single time. Rebecca is all about the titular protagonist and how she marries this widower who takes her into his beautiful mansion, and she's kind of living in the shadow of the wife that came before her, Madame de Winter. So even though she is now the Madame de Winter, it constantly feels like there's just this presence of the first Madame de Winter, and it's a great book. It'll keep you on the edge of your seat for sure. It's definitely kind of like a thriller. It has been adapted into a movie. I will say that Lily James was phenomenal in Netflix's version of Rebecca. However, I do prefer to stick to the original black and white. You can't get much better than it. So, yeah, Rebecca is a great story. I love it. It's kind of a thriller, dark romance mystery. It's great. So, we have my classics out of the way. Now I'm going to move on to books that I first discovered like in middle school and that I have loved ever since. First up, we have Code Talker by Joseph Brucach. This is all about the Navajo translators that they used in the Second World War. And on the front, you can see like the dog tags and everything. It's a book based on history. For those of you who don't know, during World War II, in order to speak in code across, different wavelengths and everything, where they knew the code would not be broken, they actually took from their homes Navajo Indians who had one of the most complex dialects in, the many, many tribes that lived in America at that time. So they took those people and their incredibly complex dialect, and they used that dialect as code during war. Code Talker really shows just kind of how life was for those original Navajo and Native Americans. It wasn't great. I love the book because it's so compelling, and it is based on true stories. It's based on the stories of Navajo Code Talkers, which there are actually several of them still alive, because they liked picking up the younger boys because younger brains learn more easily, and they had to learn English and then convert that into Navajo. So it's a very, very compelling read. I don't know if you can tell by the spine. I've trying to get the glare off. I've read it a lot. I've read it so many times. It's just one of those ones that's like all worn around the edges, stuff is starting to come off. But yeah, if you don't know about the Navajos, read the book, study on them. It was a fascinating topic, and it was also a really good example of how the indigenous peoples of America have been mistreated up until this very day. There's examples of that. My next one is also historical fiction, and it is Copper Sun by Sharon M. Draper. Now, I love this book. It is all about girl Amari, who is taken from her tribal home in Africa and brought to the colonies as a slave. She's a young girl. She's preteens, teenager. She kind of grows throughout the book, and it tells the story of her years in slavery. This gives actually a really great representation of what slave life was like from the moment that the pale skins, or, the men with skin of milk, came into these tribal lands of Africa and just brutally slaughtered and just took captives. It follows her story all the way from that, all the way to her trying to find freedom. She shares her story with an indentured servant, which, if you don't know what that is, they were basically slaves. They were just white. It was normally girls or young boys who would get paid very, very small amounts for their work. They would be indentured until the age of normally 17. And so she shares her story with Pollyanna, who is an indentured servant. It's a great read. Also, one of the things that I love about this book was I was actually at the school. I'm trying to find the page. I was actually at the school where the author was speaking. She came to my middle school, and I bought it. And look, she signed it. So I have a signed book by the author. Also, from the spine, you can tell I read it a lot of times. I actually when I first got it, I read it in one sitting. I stayed up all night, read it in one sitting. I knew I had school the next day. I didn't care. read the whole book. Another book that I found in middle school was Cuckoo Song. And it's all about changelings. And once again, like, I'm just gonna educate you guys on so much stuff of what everything is in these books. Like, if you already know it, awesome. If you don't know it, you're about to. So, cuckoos, the cuckoo bird, is known for replacing eggs in other birds' nests with eggs of their own so that they don't have to care for them. And they are the sneakiest, meanest birds. That's where the idea of changelings came from, where a human baby is replaced with a different baby by either fae or people of the other world or underworld. And this book is all about a girl who wakes up and all she knows is that her little sister is adamant that she's not her sister. So she has all these memories. She's confused. She's trying to figure it out. I've read it several times. The good thing is that this binding, like the texture of it, just listen. Sorry. The texture of it doesn't, like, the binding doesn't get cracked as easily as, like, the shiny books, but it follows Triss as she tries to discover what she is. Does she really belong? And it's called Cuckoo Song because, you know, she was replaced. And so this is just her journey of self-discovery and also her journey of finding out who she really is. Like, if I'm not this person, who am I? I loved it. It was really dark. It was really creepy. And I love that kind of stuff. I'm weird. The final book is... Alright. Technically it's a trilogy, but I have never seen it in any form other than bound in one omnibus. So I'm counting it as one book. And that's Remember Me by Christopher Pike. Like I said, it is a trilogy. It's basically about a girl who wakes up dead. She goes to a party. Next thing she knows, she's dead. And she spends her time in the afterlife trying to figure out, was my death an accident? Was it purposeful? Did somebody kill me? And I just think that that's such a fascinating premise for a book. Like, you die and then you remain on Earth to figure out why you died. Like, she's solving the mystery from the other side. It gives an absolutely stunning representation of, you know, just your general ghosty afterlife type thing. I mean, it's pretty generic as far as, you know, oh, she's a ghost and she can talk with other ghosts and, you know, she can move the Ouija board planchette, and, you know, all that typical stuff, but it is wonderfully written in such a way, like, this inspired me so much into writing my own mystery novels. So yeah, for rereadability, it's great. It's also just a really compelling read. You will find yourself at the end of it before you know it, even though, like, it's a pretty hefty book, but you'll love it. Now into books that I just discovered recently. And yes, so a couple of these books are the ones that are the reason that I have a top 13 instead of a top 10, because I couldn't decide. The first one I have up on the stack is Roseblood by A.G. Howard. I actually do have another one of her books in this stack as my definite number one pick of Standalone Books. She's an amazing author. I mean, once I read her first book, which I'll introduce to you later, I went and bought literally everything she's ever written. Like, she was that good. And Roseblood is no different. It's a retelling of Phantom of the Opera, and I'm gonna be honest, even though I'm a huge Broadway geek, Phantom of the Opera is not my favorite. Don't come for me. I'm not an Andrew Lloyd Webber girl. I'm just not, but this was fascinating. Um, Honestly, if I try to explain anything other than what's written on the back, it's spoilers. So I'm not going to do that because I hate describing books with spoilers in it. Basically, it's just this girl goes to this boarding school. She's just a musical prodigy, or well, an opera prodigy. She has this amazing gift where even if she's never heard the song before, she will be able to sing it perfectly and beautifully as soon as the music starts. And it's a gift she's had all of her life, and she doesn't know why she has it. She doesn't know where it came from. All she knows is that she wanted to fly under the radar, and it wasn't happening because of this just outstanding gift. And so operatic prodigy moves to a boarding school, and frightful pranks ensue. It's really good. I mean, and as far as a retelling of Phantom of the Opera, like, that takes a lot for me to love it, and I loved it. So that was Roseblood by A.G. Howard. The next book up is one of the ones that I couldn't decide if I should do this one or the other one by this author, and so I picked both. Next up is an Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. And as I've mentioned, I love the high fae. Like, that's my favorite genre. That's my favorite everything. I love their court system. I love, I love their politics. I love everything about the world of high fae. And this is a book about an exceptionally talented young lady, a human one, who is known throughout both realms, both fairy and human realms, for her ability to paint things in a completely different light, in a way that most people don't see them. And, you know, fairies have come to her before to have, you know, just beautiful things painted for their homes. And the princeling of the Fall Court comes to her to have his portrait done. And let's just say it doesn't come out as expected. And that just leads into a whole bunch of stuff. And it's a beautiful book, and this woman's comedic timing, and I'll say it again because I have one more of her books in the stack. Her comedic timing is amazing. Like, she'll have me in tears one moment and then cracking up hysterically the next. And her writing, she's only written 2 books, both of which are in this list, but her writing is just extraordinarily good. It's kind of addictive. So I definitely recommend An Enchantment of Ravens. Next up, we have a book that was very, very highly recommended. I kept hearing about this book, and I didn't get it for the longest time because it didn't seem to be like something that I would read just from the description alone. But it came onto one of my bargain book sites, which is bookoutlet.com, which I wish it was sponsored, but I'm not. And I was like, sure, why not? I'll give it a try. And it is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. And I was instantly, like, enraptured by it. What it basically is there's this woman who has written all of these amazing books. She's written 12 fairy tales, and they're all so beautiful, and they're so gripping, and so the world in which she lives is so enthralled by her book, but she's always remained a recluse. She's never given her real story to anyone. And finally, eventually she calls up a young woman who just, runs a bookshop with her dad and is like, I want you to interview me, and I will tell you the 100% truth. And she does, and she starts just telling these stories about life, about other people, and it's definitely worth rereading, because once you finish it the first time, you will go back, and once you reread it, you'll see like different foreshadowings, different things that you didn't see the first time. It's one of those books, and honestly, this book was magical. It was just so magical, even though there was really no magic in it at all. So yeah, the 13th Tale, definite recommend. So my next book up doesn't have, in my opinion, doesn't have a lot of rereadability. And what I mean by that is that you're not gonna reread it probably in the same year. You're probably gonna read it maybe, because rereadability is probably once a year max. At least it is for me. Because it's one of those books that you get to the ending and it's such an explosive, shocking ending. Like, it's gonna be so hard for you to forget that rereading it kind of like spoils, like it's already spoiled for you. But I definitely recommend it for at least one read, and that is House of Holo by Crystal Sutherland. I waited months for this book to come out. It had a super compelling book trailer, and it is all about these three sisters, and they disappeared when they were very, very young, only to be returned with a completely different eye color and solid white hair. And I was like, that sounds fascinating. Yeah, so I couldn't resist. I got it. It's very, very delicately woven. It's very much a page turner. Finished this in one setting also, and it was very much a page turner, and it keeps you guessing until the very, very, very end. And it's a great book. Like, if you like to be kept guessing, if you like that kind of page turner where you're like, okay, just one more chapter, just one more chapter, just one more chapter, like I am, then you will like The House of Holo. Alright, 3 books left, guys. Next up is another book that I saw, that much like the 13th Tale, I saw recommended everywhere. It was on, like, every reader that I watched on YouTube, that whenever they named like their top 10 books, this was always either number 1 or very close to. And I mean, none of these books are in any particular order, but I would, if I had to rank them, this one would rank very, very high, and that is The Night Circus by Eric Morgenstern. I am sure that you have heard of this book. It's pretty infamous among reading circles, and it's all about this circus that just appears out of nowhere in any given town for a few days, and then it's gone, like it never even existed. It's a black and white circus, and we learn that there is a battle between 2 magicians and their apprentices within this circus of who can create the most magical thing, who can create the most mind-boggling thing, because this circus is full of real magic, and anyone can come, but only after the sun sets. That's why it's called The Night Circus. It's closed all through the day, and it just comes alive at night. And oh my gosh, the sensory descriptions in this book, like, you can smell the air. That's how descriptive it is. You can taste the caramel corn. You can feel the hum of excitement. I mean, this book blew me out of the water. I was not expecting to enjoy it nearly as much as I did. Read it in one sitting, which is saying something, because this is one of those books that it looks like it's not that big, but it's one of those real heavy books with like those really thin pages. So yeah, this one got me. It's beautiful, you guys. Honestly, it is everything that a book should be. It has magic, but it also has romance, and of course that romance has complications, but at least it's not a love triangle. Hate love triangles, by the way. I can't like even put it into words. That's how good this book is. So yeah, 10 out of 10. If you don't want to buy it, get it from the library. At least read it once. Give it a shot. It is such a beautifully written book. I mean, this guy has a talent. I'm telling you, he has a real talent for just writing. Up next is the other book by Margaret Rogerson, and it is the Sorcery of Thorns. Trying to get the glare off, and of course this stupid little sticker is right over like the protagonist's face. Ugh. Okay, up next we have our second book by Margaret Rogerson, which is The Sorcery of Thorns. Get rid of that glare. It's got a really pretty cover. I like the cover. And of course, this stupid sticker, I don't know if it annoys you like it annoys me, but I cannot stand when they put stickers on the front of the book. Like, look at this cover. Just look at it. It's so pretty. And what do? They stick this price sticker right on the girl's face. Ugh. Like, stick it on the back. And don't cover the blurb. That also annoys me. Don't cover the blurb on the back of the book. Just stick it somewhere near the barcode. Okay? Just nowhere on the front. Okay, baby rant. Over. So Sorcery of Thorns is the only other book that I know of. I have searched high and far, near and wide, to find more books that she's written, but this and An Enchantment of Ravens is all I can find. Hopefully she writes more soon, because, like I said, this lady is great with intertwining drama and this beautiful just fantasy world and blending it with just so much humor. This one was definitely funnier than An Enchantment of Ravens. I mean, this one got me so many times, but it also made me cry, and it was just a really great book. I loved it so much. Basically, it is about an apprentice girl who is apprenticed in a library that holds grimoires. She has been apprenticed since she was very, very young, because basically, I guess her mother just kind of, you know how terrible moms just dump their babies on church steps instead of just taking them to a hospital? Yeah, that's what this girl's mom did. She dumped her on the steps of a library. A magical library, where sometimes the grimoires come to life and eat people. Like, why would you leave a baby there? Anyways, I envy her life, because she grew up in this beautiful setting of talking books, and, they would whisper to her, they would tell her stories, and so she grows up locking up grimoires, because And if you don't know, a grimoire is basically a sorcerer, sorceress, witch, which is book of spells. And so her job as this kind of cleric is to assure that all the grimoires stay contained. Then they have varying levels of magic, and they have varying levels of potential of actually coming to life. And so she grew up in this world. She was always taught that sorcery was a bad thing. Like, the grimoires were never supposed to be used. They were just supposed to be locked away. And then all of a sudden, she meets a sorcerer. And this sorcerer is different. And I mean, I know that sounds kind of tropey, but she starts to realize that maybe magic isn't all bad. Maybe it shouldn't all be contained. And so it's just her journey of, like, discovering that there are so many different viewpoints on what she does and magic. And I'm going to tell you right now, best character in this book is not the protagonist, not the sorcerer, but the sorcerer's servant named Silas. Oh my gosh. You have to read it. You have to meet Silas. He provides so many comedic moments. I started cracking up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and my mom came in. She was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" She said, "I thought I heard you crying." I said, "No, I'm laughing." So, yeah. It's a great book. It's beautifully written. The characters are just so beautifully intertwined, and the world itself that she built for this particular book is just so captivating. And now we've come to my book that I pulled first. I'm not going to say it's my favorite of all time, but I'm going to say that it's top 3. And that is Stain by A.G. Howard. Number 1, look at this cover. Look at how pretty it is. So the thing that caught my attention about this book, and I originally read it in the library, and then I bought a copy for myself, read it again, and again, and again, and then bought my best friend a copy of her own. So, what caught my attention was the blurb. The beginning of the blurb is like, "Once upon a nightmare, her story began." And I was like, ooh, that sounds interesting. And honestly, I've always loved reading. I've been in love with reading ever since I can remember. But this book that when you first start reading it seems so tropey. I swear it's not. It turns into one of the most beautiful things ever. And when I first read this book, it was like reading had changed for me again. Like, you know those moments when you graduate, like, to chapter books, and reading is new again, and it's this whole other world that, you know, you haven't experienced before because it's on this whole different level. And I've been reading for so long that I thought I'd never get that feeling again. This book gave me that feeling of just newness and wonderment at just how it was written. Like I said, I read this book and I proceeded to immediately buy every other book she has ever written. And I'm waiting for a 4th book to come out in the one series that she has, and it's just my precious. I'm like Gollum. My precious. Okay, nerdy moment. But I recommend this to literally everyone I meet. It had twists I wasn't expecting, and I read almost exclusively fantasy. If it's not fantasy, it's typically dystopian. And this book surprised me. And like that feeling of being surprised by a book for the first time in a really, really long time was just incredible. The writing pulls you in. The characters are all so well developed and they're all so beautiful. And like, oh my gosh, guys, by the time you reach the epilogue, you will have tears in your eyes. I still do every time I reread this book. Like, even making this video is wanting me to go reread this book right now. And yeah, it's so beautiful. And it's probably why I saved it for last, because it has a place very near and dear to my heart, even though I only discovered it like 2 years ago. I love it. It is almost, it's pretty much as close to my heart as Harry Potter, and that's saying something. So I'm sorry about that long rant on that last book, but I had to, because I just have to convey to you guys my love for that book and why you should go read it yourself. I had to. So that's it. That's all of my top 13 books. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope maybe I've given you guys some good recommendations if you don't want to make a commitment to a particularly long series, which most of the series in my top 10 series are particularly long. So I hope that maybe you'll go out and read at least one of these books. They are all excellent. They are all beautiful. And I hope you enjoyed the video. So I'm definitely certain that I've given you your spoonful of geekiness for the day. And as a madman in a box once said, run fast, laugh hard, and be kind. Bye, guys. Technically, this is... Candy, stop. Hey. My cats are fighting. Are you done? Stop it. Unpoof that tail. I swear, it's preparing for children. Oh, and the allergies. Just, allergy season is killing me right now. No, Muffin! They all want to be in my recording. Because it's not... Candy, stop chewing on that. My cats today, I swear. Anyways, so An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Storkenson. Rogerson, not Storkenson. Rogerson.